In this video, I'm going to be talking about how I grew my Instagram gaming account, how it started, and how I built up a gaming community on that platform. Alright everyone, hope you're doing well. Thank you for pressing play once again. I'm the man they call Pixel Paul, and Pixel Paul all started on Instagram. Yes, it was originally all to do with Instagram. I started a gaming account on Instagram back in 2021, and this YouTube kind of was a bit of a spin-off of that gaming account. Now, I've been doing it for quite a while, Instagram. Well, what is it, 4 years now. It's still going, still growing, and I get quite a lot of questions come my way through messages and all sorts. How did you grow that gaming account? What do you do? How do you plan your content on there? How do you build a community? How do you approach it? So I just thought, you know what? Enough people have sort of asked me about this. Enough people asked me advice on it. I just thought, why don't I just put this down into a video? Let everybody sort of see what I do with that account and how I built it and how I built the following on there. So yeah, I just thought, let's do it as a video. It's not the usual sort of content that I would put on my YouTube channel particularly. I would never really consider myself to be like an influencer. Maybe I wouldn't say I'm an influencer. I'm certainly no sort of social media expert or guru or anything like that. So if you're expecting one of those short, sharp, snappy YouTube videos that tells you to, this is how you will grow your account, this is how you cheat the algorithm, that's not kind of what this is. This is purely me telling you how I've sort of managed to grow my Instagram account, and the ways I go about it, really. Just a very simple, and I'm a very simple guy, very simple look at, what I do. So I hope you enjoy this, and let's get into it. Yeah, Instagram, Gamergram, the Instagram gaming community. How did it all start for me? Well, 2021, that was when it all started. I had an Instagram account and I didn't really use it that much. I'd had it for a few years before, I think. But yeah, I didn't really use it for much. I think I actually had that as a spin-off from my sort of Facebook account. And I used to use Facebook for uploading pictures of, family and that sort of stuff. So my folks could see, their grandkids growing up and that kind of thing. And I think Instagram and Facebook sort of became connected, so some of my photos used to transfer from one to the other, but yeah, I was never really a big user of Instagram. It was just not something I really liked to use particularly. It wasn't until, and it's a weird way of how this started in a way, it wasn't until I bought this. So I got this from B&M Bargains, I don't know, 2021, yeah, probably around the start of the year of that year. I bought this from B&M Bargains. I think I got it for about £2. And I posted a picture of this lit up. I don't think this is lit up, got any batteries in it. Lit up on top of my PlayStation 4. I might even have the post and put it on the video. Put that on my Instagram. Well, I think I put it on my Facebook and it went onto my Instagram account. And I looked at the photo on Instagram a day or two later or whatever and noticed there were a couple of likes, but I'd also gained quite a few followers. Now, I think I must have had about 18 followers on Instagram, mainly family members, maybe the odd randomer. But I think after I'd posted that photo, I must have had about, I don't know, near to 30. And I was thinking, well, how have I suddenly gained 30 followers? I barely know 30 people. So I looked into it, looked at the people who'd followed me. A lot were like game collectors and gaming accounts. So I just thought, I'll follow them and have a look, see what they put on Instagram. And looked into it a bit deeper and noticed and saw that this was a thing that, people were posting pictures of video games, of video game collections, of gaming setups and that sort of thing. And it just sort of, something just clicked in my head and I thought, do you know what? Why don't I give that a go? I've got plenty of games. And this is when my collection was a little bit smaller than this, well, a lot smaller than this. I just sort of started to rebuild it. I thought, I'm starting to collect again. Why don't I start a bit of an Instagram account? So I deleted some of the pictures that were on my original Instagram account. There's a few still on there. If you scroll right to the bottom of that Instagram account, there are still some pictures of family and things like that. But yeah, I just started to post pictures of games. and pickups that I found in charity shops and things like that. Very similar to like this YouTube channel in a way. So yeah, I just started to do that and just started to gradually build a bit of a following. I was following other accounts, seeing loads of other people with much bigger accounts than what I was ever expecting to sort of have. People with 1,000 followers, people with 10,000 followers, which I just thought blew my mind. It was like people posting pictures of games and they've got 10,000 followers. Completely alien to me. So I just thought, maybe I can do it. Maybe I could get to like 100 followers, something like that. And I did that quite quickly, to be fair. And literally all it was just posting bad photos of games. And that was it. And yeah, so I hit like 100 followers, which was mind-blowing at the time. And then it just carried on. It just grew in a way. I sort of moved my collection into this room, into this setup. And that kind of helped with like the making of photos, and it sort of gave me a bit more freedom, if you like, to post sort of different pictures of games in different places and that sort of thing, and be a little bit more creative with it. And I just started to really quite enjoy it. I've always quite liked taking photos of things. Games and I quite like photography in a way. I'm not a photographer or anything like that, but I've always quite liked taking pictures and memories and that sort of thing. So yeah, the first year of doing that, I got to 5,000 followers in the first year. Now just getting to 1,000, getting to 100 was mind blowing. Getting to 1,000 was just. But by the end of that year, that first year, I'd got to 5,000 followers. The second year, I had another 5,000 followers, so I got to 10. The third year, I think I had a slight dip. I must have hit about 4,500 followers, and things have slowed down considerably this year. But we'll get into that a little bit. But yeah, things did start to slow down this year, really. But in general, yeah. So I've built up a following of, what is it now? Just under 17,000 followers, I think it is now. Is it under 18? I can't remember, which is really bad. I think it's 17. Could be wrong. But yeah, I built up an unbelievable, in my mind, an unbelievable amount of followers on there. I never really ever sort of thought that, when I first looked at Instagram, I never really thought that I would be able to get an account, a middle-aged, greying gamer or game collector with no sort of particular talent or anything like that would be able to sort of build an account like that. And it's something I am quite proud of. I think I surprised a lot of people with it as well, family included. I don't think anybody expected that I would sort of be able to make something of that account in a way. So it's something I'm very proud of, but I've also worked relatively hard at it as well. So it's the work that goes into it that I kind of wanted to maybe share with everybody and sort of give you an insight into things that I do on Instagram. And again, these aren't things like, cheating the algorithm and that sort of thing. It's just, the sort of basics almost, because the way I do post on Instagram and the way I sort of use the account is pretty basic, to be honest. But I think a lot of people in the gaming community, that's all they want. They just want their little corner of that sort of gamergram community. So hopefully this will help a little bit. Cheers, everybody. So I've tried to break this down a little bit into sort of different sections, and I don't want this video to be too long and too drawn out and too boring, because it is a bit different from the norm, the sort of videos that I normally do on this channel. But I've kind of broken it down a bit. So the most obvious place to start are posts themselves. So when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about gaming posts, game collection, gaming posts. That is my niche. That is my category. That is what I concentrate on. I don't really post about anything else, just other than games. And social media experts, algorithm experts, whatever you want to call them, will probably say to you, concentrate on a niche. Concentrate on your niche. Now, for me, gaming is my niche. That is me. You probably will find that some people will concentrate on PlayStation. Some people will be very much on Nintendo, Sega, retro, cozy games, violent games, fighting games. Some people do concentrate solely on those kind of almost like micro niches, but my niche if you can call it that, is game collecting and gaming. That is it. And it's the same with YouTube, really. I could be possibly, I don't know, doing myself a disservice by doing it that way. I could be, limiting my success, if you like, on both of these platforms by not narrowing things down. But I don't want to do that because I just want to concentrate on games. I just play games on everything, and I'm not favouring any one sort of genre or company or anything like that. So yeah, if you have that niche, great. If you only play PlayStation and you only want to post about PlayStation, that might help you, because apparently it helps the algorithm or whatever find your content easier. But there you go. But I personally concentrate on everything. Gaming is my thing. So pictures on Instagram, and pictures for me is the main thing. There are reels as well, which we'll touch on in a little bit, but photos and content, that's what I sort of concentrate on. And I guess the basic sort of thing is to take good pictures. that is as simple as it gets. Take decent pictures. The better quality picture you can take and put onto Instagram, the more noticeable it is, the more it pops on someone's feed. That's the way I find. If you just put on a picture, a blurred picture with a boring sort of grey background, it's going to get overlooked. And it's the sad truth. That's the way it works. It doesn't mean that you have to have mega fancy photo equipment. It doesn't mean you have to have big elaborate photo sets or anything like that. I mean, I just use my camera phone. I've always just used a camera phone. I do very minimal kind of editing, just the editing software that's on the phone to touch up contrast and that sort of thing. But in general, it doesn't have to be massively lavish, but if you can take the best quality photo that you can take, it will give you that advantage. It will make your photo pop on people's feed, and especially people who are following loads and loads and loads of different gaming content creators. They will be scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and if your picture's boring, it's not going to get picked up. Not that always matters. That is possibly not the be all and end all. The thing that I sort of found with posting photos and pictures is just to be consistent, just to be there, just to be part of the gaming community. But the better your content is, the more people are going to end up coming to your account and liking and commenting and engaging, and that is the main sort of thing. It's that engagement that you want on Instagram. So yeah, the better quality, the more it pops, the better results you're going to get, really. That's pretty simple, isn't it, really? I think everybody probably knows that. Variety as well. I think keeping a variety of your posts as well. So for some people, maybe it works. They'll take a picture of one game and they will use the same sort of format for every single photo that they take on Instagram. That works for them. I personally like to mix it up as much as I can, just to be a bit creative, and so I don't get bored of it in a way. So just taking photos in different positions, different places in the games room, even getting creative and taking them into, say, outside and theming a picture. So for example, if you have, I don't know, a game like Endless Ocean, say, on the Wii, take it by the seaside, something creative like that. I always think that they are some of the sort of more memorable photos in a way. So being creative is a huge thing on Instagram as well. Something that I always recommend as well is make sure that you have some sort of nice caption to go alongside it. I know it's very easy, and I'm guilty of it as well, is to have a caption underneath the photo. It doesn't have to be paragraphs and paragraphs of stuff, just a couple of lines, but it just shows that you've put a bit of thought into that photo, into that piece of content, if you like. And if you can ask a question as well, if you can ask questions, if you can ask people's opinions on something, it just sort of draws that engagement in. It keeps people on your post longer. They're more likely to like it. They're more likely to follow you. So if you can sort of draw a bit of engagement from them, ask a question, great. What I would say is, if you do ask for a question and you get replies, always try to reply back. It's just polite. It's just polite. And it means that person's, again, sort of engaged with you, and you're building that little bit of connectivity, if that's the word. So yeah, I would always put a caption, with hashtags, I'm not going to go into hashtags and the best hashtags to use or anything like that. All I would say with hashtags is don't use the same ones over and over and over, because I think if you do that, Instagram picks up on it and thinks you're a bot and can end up, I don't know, doing stuff, shadow banning you. They say that that's not a thing, but people use that term all the time on Instagram. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend using the same hashtags over and over. Mix up hashtags. If hashtags are even relevant these days, I don't know, to be honest. So yeah, captions are a great thing to put on with a post as well. And one of the big sort of things that came around, and it's about 2 years ago now, was music with a picture. Now, for me, that was it probably made Instagram 10 times more enjoyable for me in a way, in creating photos and content on Instagram, because I love music. I am a big music fan. I love my sort of rock music, metal, anything like that. I just like music. And being able to add music to a photograph was massive for me, because it just means you can put a little bit more personality to a photo in a way. And I am constantly, so whenever we're driving around, I usually listen to Kerrang radio. Whenever I hear a track on Kerrang, and I've not heard it before, I'm straight away looking at the title of the track on the radio while driving safely, of course, and listening to it. And if I'm thinking, I like this piece of music, it's really good, I'm thinking of a game that I can put with that with that piece of music on Instagram. That is sad, but it's true. So yeah, I do that quite a lot. So the best example for that would be like Five Finger Death Punch have a song called Bad Company. So I remember hearing that and thinking, I've got to put Battlefield on with that track, Bad Company. So yeah, just use music as a bit of inspiration. If you're sort of not sure what games to post, think of a track that a good piece of music that you can put on Instagram with a game that sort of relates to it. It just helps. It just builds sort of something. It builds that post. And I just think if you don't put music on with a piece of a photo, it just loses something. So thoroughly always recommend using music with any post that you do on Instagram. In terms of how many times to upload, it's very hard to say. I personally, when I first started, I was so enthusiastic with it. I was posting 3 times a day without fail. I was 3 times a day, usually sort of around midday, maybe 2 o'clock, one at sort of 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and then one about 8 o'clock, something like that. Those are my sort of 3 times. The 2 evening ones at 5 o'clock, I usually got one on after I'd finished work. Then obviously I get one on later on. The sort of midday ones, I would usually take another picture at night and schedule it for sort of midday to 2 o'clock the next day when I'm at work. So it always meant that something was, ticking over and going onto Instagram. I'm a little bit more relaxed with that these days. The 2 sort of posts in the evening, I still try to do. The midday ones, if I've got time to schedule one, I'll try. If I have a break in my, if I have a lunch break while I'm at work, I might post something then. But in general, definitely the 2 sort of evening ones. A lot of people used to say to me, you're like a posting machine, 3 posts a day, that's insane. How do you manage to do that? And if I'm honest, the way I was doing that was by not overthinking it too much, I think. I was just literally just thinking, right, well, I've not posted that game. Take a picture, snap, get it on, done. And I think that's one of the key things for me, is not to overthink stuff too much. Okay, so away from photos, the other big part of Instagram, obviously, is Reels. Now, I was doing Reels for a little bit. I don't tend to do quite as many of them as I do now, probably because I'm recording video for YouTube now, so I don't tend to do too many Reels these days. Maybe one. I think this year's been the year I've done the least amount of Reels, and I always had sort of mixed results with them. And it's another one of those where if you almost need to find out what suits you best. I mean, a lot of people only post Reels. Some people do a mix. Some people only post photos. So I think it's with Reels, for me personally, I just never got into doing reels particularly. Like on here, I don't tend to do too many YouTube shorts either. I was trying to do at least one a month at some point, but again this year I've kind of veered away from doing shorts just because I prefer doing long form stuff. It just feels a bit more, I don't know, I just prefer to do it. So reels I've kind of veered away from, but the way the world is, the way it is now is, short attention spans apparently, which isn't great for my channel with my half-hour long videos. But yeah, short attention spans, people want quick, snappy content and that sort of thing. So maybe reels is something you should think about if you are doing or starting an Instagram gaming account. Certainly look into it, and if you may even find that you enjoy doing that more. So it's certainly something to think about. But I don't think there's any harm in doing both personally. It never did me any harm particularly. So yeah, something to think about is doing reels alongside those sort of photo posts as well. So away from content itself, Instagram itself. So again, I don't know the ins and outs of Instagram. I'm not a social media expert in any way, but to me, the biggest thing about Instagram is engagement and that community as well. And we're very lucky really with gaming, and the gaming community on Instagram is really good. I've been on other social media sort of things before in the past. So I was on like I was adminning an admin on a Facebook Bolton Wanderers football group for a while. And when things are going good on there, that sort of thing, it's great. When things turn sour with football, things can get quite toxic. So yeah, I was an admin, and then I had my own group for Bolton Wanderers, which I think is still around these days. I had to leave it and sort of pass over the reins to somebody when I started a new job because it was just too much to carry on. But at some point, that was like one of the biggest Wanderers Facebook groups on Facebook at the time. But anyway, so yeah, the sort of community thing is sort of inbuilt with Facebook. Instagram, it's a little bit different because there's not necessarily sort of groups and that sort of thing, but it doesn't really detract from the overall sort of gaming community that has built on Instagram. And I think since I've started, I think that community has got stronger and better and bigger and just a lot more enjoyable as well. I think there's a load of great sort of content creators for games in the UK and even further afield. I mean, I speak to people from Finland, Holland, America. I think there's somebody in Mexico. There's people all over the place, and it's incredible the people you kind of then in a way get to meet outside of outside of the whole Instagram phone thing in a way, in real life. So getting into that community and building and being part of that community is, for me, it's the biggest thing about it. I love sharing the games. I love telling people about games that maybe they didn't know about. One of my favorite things about Instagram is, or one of the favorite comments I can get on Instagram is if I post a game and someone puts a comment on saying, I'd never heard of this game before, I'd never seen it before, I'm going out looking for it. And I love that because it makes me think, great, I've given a game that I like that maybe other people didn't know about, and somebody has now taken that and gone to go and play that game, and it's given that game a little bit of airtime. So I love that kind of thing. And it's that sort of thing which the gaming community on there is all about. People post videos about, post reels, post photos of games that some people have just never heard of, and I love that side of it. And it's also just really supportive as well. So a lot of people get quite down with Instagram when they're trying to build their accounts up and things like that. And Instagram, throughout the time that I've been on it, I've seen this before. It has peaks and troughs. It has highs and it has lows. There are periods of time in Instagram where things are going great. You'll be getting followers, you'll be getting engagement, you'll be getting content, viewed and liked, which is great. But there is always, it's just always there. There is something that will change. There is something that will be, alter. Again, I'll say it again, the algorithm. And it makes a huge difference. And yeah, you will see things like follows decrease. You'll see things like likes decrease and views decrease. We're going through it at the moment. So we're in we're in October 2025. We're going through that period of change a little bit at the moment. It's probably been from September as well. I know a lot of people are saying that they're getting massive amounts of views. I think my views for the last 30 days is something like 4.5 million, which is unusual. It's incredible, but it just doesn't feel right because I'm getting less sort of views or something on, a lot of the other metrics are kind of lower. Likes are lower, follows are lower, but I'm getting all these views and it just doesn't feel right. And it's because something somewhere has changed. And it does get people down. And, people sort of think, is it my content? Is it the photos? Is it me? And 9 times out of 10, it's not. It's just the way Instagram is. And you kind of have to just grind it out a little bit. You have to commit to it. You have to just keep going because it does improve. Every time I've seen one of these dips, it gets better eventually. But if you give up, nothing will get better. That's the best advice I would say. If you give up, nothing will change, nothing will improve. But if you just grind it out, if you keep going, you'll see the results at the end of it eventually. You will. And it's that part of the sort of community sort of spirit in a way. Is, you see a lot of people sort of, you can tell people are kind of like, putting posts on saying, I'm really kind of disappointed with things. It's not going the way I want it to go. And you see people sort of picking them up. And partly that's kind of like what this video is about. I just want to help people almost, not give up in a way. Again, if you can see me sort of building, a relatively decent Instagram account, if I can do it, you can do it. So, you know what I mean? It's that's the best way I can put it, really. And just to, don't let it get to you too much. So the engagement and the gaming community and everything on there on Instagram, you have to embrace that. I think you have to embrace it as best you can. Because if you are supportive of others, they will support you back. Yeah, I think that's the best way I can put it, really. Building a following as well on Instagram, getting followers on Instagram is great. Building that sort of number up, it blows your mind sometimes. But don't forget to also follow other accounts. Now, you see a lot of the sort of bigger YouTube, maybe even YouTube, but sort of bigger YouTube accounts and some of the bigger Instagram accounts, they'll have, I don't know, 100,000 followers, and they'll follow 3 people. And they say, I'm sure I heard somebody say, if you have more than sort of 10%, if you're following more than 10% of your followers or something like that, it makes it look like you're just following for follows, that sort of thing. It's hard to explain, and I've never really understood that. Just follow who you want to follow, because if nobody follows anybody, nobody's going to get anywhere with it, are they? So yeah, don't be afraid to follow other accounts. And if you follow a load of people, well, that's great, really. You're going to see everybody else's content. I think I mentioned it before as well. If somebody comments on your post, make sure you comment back, because it's just polite. It's just nice. It helps with that engagement as well. Don't be afraid to comment on other people's posts. Make sure you're liking other people's posts. Be supportive of other people's content as well. So another part of Instagram, so we've had posts, photos, we've had reels. There's also stories as well. So stories, I do use quite a bit. So stories are, I think they stay on for about 24 hours. They're like stories on any other sort of social media. They have them on Facebook, they have them on TikTok, and they're quite useful, I think. So I do a lot of sort of sharing of posts or other people's posts on stories. If I just see something out and about, very quickly, I'll put it onto a story rather than have it as a post or a piece of content on my feed, if you like. So stories are something that you should use quite a lot, because I think people do go through those. People do scroll through those. I personally use them to sort of promote my YouTube videos as well. With links and that sort of thing. So stories are really useful, and I thoroughly recommend sort of making sure that you do use stories as well. And it's a good way of also like I said before, it's a good way of being supportive of other accounts, but it's also a good way to be able to sort of thank people for sharing your posts. So yeah, definitely use stories. Tagging people into posts as well. So a lot of people tag people a lot or all the time. I personally don't tag people that much. I tag people probably once a week. I do it on specific posts, which I'll get into a little bit in a minute. So I do it once a week. I will tag different people, and tagging people can be sort of looked at in two ways. Tagging people is to make those people aware that you've posted a new post. Or you can look at it from the other way, and I kind of tag people because I kind of hope that if people view my post, they will see the tags and the people that I've tagged, and they will go and look at their accounts. So that's the way I kind of look at it. But either way, that's what tagging is all about in a way. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing it on every single post personally. I think you would get possibly bombarded with notifications too much. I think I would anyway. So yeah, tags are good. Just think about how you use them though, and what suits you best, and sort of what period you are at with your Instagram account. I think that's the best way to look at it. So other things that I think about with posts and photos in particular. So I always think of them as like gimmicks, but they're not gimmicks, they're themes in a way. So I have a few sort of running themes that I use with my posts throughout each week. And it's all about sort of just being that little bit creative with things. So I use certain specific days during the week for things like Wii Wednesday, which I do on a Wednesday, Wii games on a Wednesday. I also have like the Saturday shelfie, sometimes the Sunday shelfie, which is just the shelfies of games collections usually taken there. And those ones are usually some of my most liked posts. In fact, if you look through my kind of top 20 most liked posts on Instagram, I'd say about 75% of them are shelfies. And that is something people do tend to like. People like to see lots of games, like they like to see collections of games. So I take a lot of photos of just singular games. Again, probably to my detriment a little bit, but it'd be quite easy just to take pictures of random stacks of games, random shelfies all the time. But I just get very bored of it. Yes, it might do numbers, it might bring followers in, it might bring likes or whatever, but I just get bored of doing that. So. But yeah, themes, sort of theming certain posts, it just gives people not necessarily something to look forward to, but just a bit of regularity, a bit of familiarity each week. I used to do a series on Instagram every Saturday night. It was Saturday night at the movies, where it would be a picture of a game alongside its movie game adaptation. And I used to do those every Saturday night. So I'd have Mortal Kombat, the movie, with Mortal Kombat, the game, or something like that. And I did that for about a year, I think it was. And then I ran out of movies. So, but it's just little things like that, little ideas like that. And just to be creative. I mean, some of the stuff, some of the people on Instagram at the moment on the gaming community are coming up with are, just amazing sort of ideas and everything. I'm quite in awe of some of the ideas some people come up with. But yeah, definitely try to have something that is your kind of thing, your creation, if you like, on Instagram. Always good to do. You've also got like your seasonal themes as well. So like obviously we're heading into Halloween, so everybody's starting to do posts about horror games and that sort of thing, which it's fine, that's good. Sort of talking of like those themes and what's popular and what's not popular, so things that have worked for me over the last 3-4 years, whatever it is, like I said, shelfies, pictures of lots of games tend to do a lot better than single shots of games. It's just, I don't know whether it sort of draws people in because you've got so many games on a photo, people are taking longer to look at the picture or something like that, but they do tend to do quite well. So shelfies of games, game collections, game stacks as well. So that's another theme that I have. I do the Friday flashback. So every Friday night I put a photo of all of the games that I feature during the last week on my Instagram account, and they're sort of just stacked up like that. But stacks of games usually do quite well as well. Again, lots of different games people take an interest in, and they like to look at each one and see what is in that stack or on that shelfie. So collections of games are probably more popular than single pictures of games. That's from my experience. That's the way my sort of the statistics on my account show me anyway. One thing that people do like in the gaming community, inevitably, are GTA posts, Grand Theft Auto posts. Any GTA game, people seem to absolutely love GTA. I'm not a massive fan of GTA personally, but whenever I put a picture of a GTA game on, they tend to do pretty well. My most liked post, I think, was it 20? It's up to about 22,000 likes on it, which is unreal. 22,000 likes on a post, and it was is it the episodes from Liberty City, the sort of DLC GTA game on PlayStation 3, and I literally took that photo. It took about 10 seconds. I just literally pulled it out of the shelf, put it on the shelf behind me here, took a picture of it, and I had to run out the door because we were going doing the big shop. So it took about 10 seconds to post that. I just put on some GTA music with it, a little bit of a caption, and posted it, and kind of forgot about it. Went out shopping, came back, and within like 2 hours, it done 1,000 likes or something like that. It was insane. I got a huge amount of follows from that as well. So sometimes that's all it takes. It just takes, a game at the right moment with the right music, with the right caption, just to sort of explode in a way. I don't want to say go viral or anything like that, but yeah, it just takes one post like that. I think at that point I was already doing pretty well on Instagram, but that one, just helped. I don't know, just it shifted things along quite quickly with that one post. So yeah, but GTA posts, people love GTA. They do. I also find, sadly in a way, I find older games don't quite get as much traction as newer games, or games with bigger sort of series, like GTA. So if I could put a picture of, like my favourite NES game, and it won't quite do as well, but quite frankly, I don't care, because I just want to share a picture of that game, and if one person appreciates it, that'll do for me, to be honest. But yeah, older stuff possibly doesn't sort of register quite as much on Instagram. But then I also think, when people put pictures of, say, like PlayStation 5 games, so like this week Ghost of Yotai came out, and that game is all over Instagram. Now, I wouldn't buy that game on day one anyway. I'm not a day one game buyer particularly. But if I bought that game, I personally wouldn't post that straight away, because everybody's posting about it. Why would you post it and have it, your photo of it, lost in a sea of other pictures of the same game? I would wait a couple of weeks and then post it. That's the way I would do it. That's the way I sort of think about it. So yeah, just think about, it's almost having to be a little bit strategic with it. I am going to say later on, toward the end of this video, don't overthink things. But I think things like that, I think, are almost common sense. So I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. But I just think, thinking about what everybody else is doing a little bit. And do you want that post to do well, or are you not bothered? You just want to get it onto there and show everybody that you've got it. That's up to you. It's how you do it. But yeah, I personally sort of would wait in a way. But I do find, get back to my point, I do find older stuff doesn't particularly seem to register that much, sadly. And I also find Nintendo stuff doesn't do quite as well as, say, PlayStation stuff. PlayStation stuff seems to get a lot of attention. Xbox 360 at the moment still gets a bit of attention. But yeah, certainly PlayStation stuff does okay for me on Instagram. So yeah, again, maybe it comes down to that niche. And if you are on a PlayStation niche, then you could potentially do quite well. Right, I realise that I have rambled a little bit, so I'm going to get to the end of this video now with some sort of pointers just to be considerate of, just to think about. So the most, and some of these are relevant to YouTube as well, I think. Again, I'm not preaching or being, trying to pretend to be some sort of expert with this. This is just sort of my experiences and what I sort of think. But I think the biggest thing I say to people on Instagram is be patient. is just be patient. Unless you are extremely lucky and in a certain percentage of people, these things don't happen overnight. You've got to work at it a little bit. You've got to take your time. You've got to build it up. So you've just got to be patient and don't force things, because if you start to force things, I think people can see through it. I think people get bored of it, and I think it just makes people switch off. So, and again, so yeah, kind of relevant, I think, to YouTube as well, really. But yeah, it's I think you just have to be a bit patient and a bit sort of sensible with it in a way, and not expect too much too soon. And with that, you've got to try not to get too disheartened if things don't quite work out. So if you have a post that you've put all your time and effort into and it doesn't do great, you just got to learn from it in a way. Just learn what to do better. But if you've enjoyed doing it, what does it matter? That's the thing in a way. And like I said before, just enjoying it. Make sure you're having fun with it, because if you're not having fun with it, what's the point? And the whole point of it is for it to be almost like a hobby, isn't it? It's a hobby within a hobby in a way. And I always say this about YouTube as well, is don't let your YouTube or Instagram dictate your collecting. Let your collecting dictate what you put on Instagram and YouTube. So we are veering into YouTube as well here. But yeah, if you start to pick up things specifically just to make content, that is a rabbit hole that you have to be extremely careful with, because if you purely just buying stuff to put on onto to make content, are you actually wanting that stuff? And you have to be careful with that, because again, you'll burn out very quickly and you'll run out of money. So let your actual collecting dictate what you do with your Instagram content. Don't let Instagram drive your spending and your collecting and your gaming in a way. Just do what you want to do on there. Don't analyze stats too much as well. That's the way. A lot of people are. I'm quite sort of guilty. I quite like a stat or two, even though I'm not very good at maths. I do like looking at numbers for Instagram and YouTube and that sort of thing. Don't really know what to do with them, but I do like looking at numbers sometimes. But it's not always healthy to do that, because you end up chasing numbers rather than chasing the enjoyment. So don't overanalyze things. Don't compare yourself to bigger accounts as well. It's bigger accounts. Have teams of people working for them. It might only be one person, front and center of the content of Instagram, of YouTube. But those accounts with millions of followers or millions of subscribers or whatever have teams of people behind them, and we just can't. We can't compete with that. You just got to do what you want to do in a way. And the last bit of advice, and I think I touched on this before, is just don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. If you have a game that you want to put onto Instagram, just do it. Just do it and see how it goes. Because what's the worst that can happen? Just go with your gut instinct and just throw it on. Don't overthink it too much. Do the best you can with it, obviously, but don't overthink it too much. And don't be afraid of what happens at the end of it. It could be it could do really, really well. It could get no sort of attention, but what does it matter in a way? You just go on to the next one. Just think about the next one and what you can do better in a way, but just don't overthink it. Oh wow, that was just a complete ramble, wasn't it? I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I can think of that I do with Instagram. I don't think so. I don't think I've missed anything, but I am conscious that this video could run and run and run. But I've always said this to people on Instagram and YouTube. If you ever want any sort of advice, if you ever need picking up or anything like that, not picking up in the literal sense, in a car or anything like that, if you want a talk about something that you've posted or, advice about something, again, I'm not an expert, but I can draw on the experience that I've had with creating stuff on Instagram and adhere to a degree, but I'm always happy to help and give a little bit of advice that that comes from my just personal experience. I'm always happy to, so please just reach out on Instagram, and I always try to reply. Like I say on here, I will always try to reply, because that's what the gaming community is all about. Hope you enjoyed that. I do hope that maybe you've got something from this. I hope my regular non-Instagram YouTube followers haven't minded this video. I'm hoping it's been relatively interesting and gaming related. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.